Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Opp Watch. This weekend, CF Montreal hits the road for their third match of the season as they take on the New York Red Bulls. It's a clash of two teams heading in very different directions early on. New York comes in riding hot, having won two straight to open their MLS campaign, while Montreal is still searching for that first result to spark their season. To help us break it all down, we're joined by Bob Ventimiglia. Let me know if I messed that up. Host of the Designated Pundits, to preview the matchup and give us an insight from the Red Bulls perspective. Bob, thank you for joining us. How you doing today?
Of course, I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me.
Did I botch the last name? I'm so sorry.
So there's kind of two pronunciations. Traditionally, it's Ventimiglia, so that Italian G is silent. But most people say Ventimiglia. When my family came to the country, they kind of Englishized it. But now that I'm talking soccer with people who are actually Italian, we kind of got to go back to the old world.
Yeah. All good, all good. Well, look, thanks so much for joining us today for this edition of Opp Watch. How about we get right into it? So, if you had to sum up New York's 2025 season in one sentence, how would you describe it?
Trust the kids. Trust the
Trust.
kids. That's 100% what it is. Michael Bradley took over as head coach, and after just winning the championship with the youth squad the previous year, he came in and put out this youth lineup that had people a little bit puzzled. Not really what we expected there. Starting, three players under the age of 18 in the first match, and I kind of justified it by saying, "Hey, he's a youth coach. He found the young players who were doing well and rewarded them." He said, "Okay, you've been doing well so long. You're with the first team now. Congratulations. Here's a reward for a game." I never expected it to last 2 games, but that's exactly what he did, and ran back the exact same roster a second time. You have 17-year-old Julian Hall, who was with Red Bull for about a year and a half and actually couldn't play weekday games because of New Jersey labor laws when he was so young, when he was 16 years old. Now they're starting Adri Mehmeti, who was the best player on the field for the previous 2 games at Red Bull and at Orlando. He's a holding midfielder, someone that had maybe catapulted really quickly onto the radar. No one heard about him, and boom.
Before we get too ahead of ourselves, I just kind of want to go back to 2025. Sure. How was it? How was that season and overall? Just if you can kind of summarize it for us. And were there any key moments or turning points that defined that campaign in particular?
Yeah. After coming off of an MLS Cup appearance, it was a year of change. We got to MLS Cup playing the kind of new 5-man back line. We went into the 2025 season with a whole bunch of center backs, a whole bunch of wing backs, not fullbacks. And immediately after 3 games, threw that system out the window, tried something new. Sandro Schwartz did not get the most out of his players. It was a year of turnover, a lot of outgoing players. Only 3 players from that starting MLS Cup roster are still on the team. And we missed the playoffs for the first time in 15 years, ended the longest streak in Major League Soccer, in I think almost all of American sports, with that 15-year streak. And it was a lack of urgency. It was always, hey, yeah, we'll get him next week. Hey, Sandro Schwartz was a system guy, and he was, okay, we're learning the system. We're taking it real slow. When I talked to Mark Fishkin from Seeing Red, he thought, and Sandro was under the impression too, that he had another year of the project to put together. That was not to be. And then you see what happened. Michael Bradley became the new head coach. So 2025 was a year of failures all around. Not that Red Bull, without winning a cup in those 15 playoff years, really cared much about the streak anyway.
Yeah.
But that came. And then with that change during the season, boom, new coach, new system, new players, a whole lot of changes. So the 2025 year into the 2025 off season, lot of changes.
Okay. And yeah, I want to kind of talk about that. So in 2025, were there any maybe key points, key moments or turning points maybe in the season? I know you said it was a lot of failures, a lot of ups and downs, but would there be, for example, at CF Montreal, I think the whole league got the memo that the owners wrote a letter out to their fans, as if saying, we messed up and we're sorry about it.
Yeah.
That was the turning point. Did you guys have something similar last season?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. And what I think it was, Sandro Schwartz, who was a great coach and a great interview, by the way. If you get to like listen to him talking, I'm sure he'll have a job real soon coaching another team. Mm-hmm. It was just kicking the can down the road. This system is going to hold us. Everything is sound. It's okay that we didn't get the result now. We're going to get them next week. And next week never came. And I think that's what it was. Out at the end of the season, 1 win, 1 draw, 5 losses, and just squeaked out of missing a playoff spot. So no, it wasn't. And I think that was the problem. Sometimes it's okay that there's no defining moment. You're playing consistent. It wasn't that. It was just there was no fire. There was no spark. And in the end, the coach ended up paying the price.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, that headed into the 2025 offseason. As the new season gets underway, how would you assess New York's offseason from maybe roster moves and tactical adjustment? I know you said trust the kids. How confident are you that those decisions have set the team up for success?
0% confident. Right. I think here's what I do know. If you win the first 3 games of any season, start out with 9 points, your chances of making the playoffs are really good. Yeah. And that's where Red Bull's sitting right now with an easy front end of the schedule. The offseason was a lot of defensive players outgoing. Sean Nealis went to DC. Alexander Hack on a contract termination. Noah Ayla sold to Bristol City. Raheem Edwards eventually was waived. Curtis Ofori option declined. Kyle Duncan option declined. Carlos Coronel found a new squad. We're playing with a complete new back line. So I think that kind of tells you a little bit of what happened. We did bring in reinforcements, right? Ethan Horvath from Cardiff City, the U.S. men's national team, Jorge Ruvalcaba. So there were a lot of negatives, but hey, some positives too. And I think almost every player signed may not have been a big splash player, but they're reclamation projects. It's like daring Michael Bradley. Like, can you get the most out of Cade Cowell? No one else has yet. Challenge accepted. How can you get the most out of Justin Che or Robert Volader or Jorge Ruvalcaba? All these guys. Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy, who just had an outstanding game last week. Maybe players that aren't at the top of their form, but who we think have a lot of potential and could possibly fit this system. So I think it was maybe not big splash signings, but it was targeted. Who can help this squad with this system with Michael Bradley? Let's go get those guys. So a lot of not sexy signings, but a lot of signings that could put a team together. It was a team building season for sure.
All right. Well, you mentioned a few names, and you mentioned a few names that were offloaded, but you forgot one, Bob. You forgot one. And you forgot the guy that came to CF Montreal, Mr. Wiki Carmona. There was the player swap between Montreal and New York that raised some eyebrows. I guess that's putting it nicely. If you're explaining Wiki Carmona to Montreal fans who haven't watched him closely, what should they be excited about? What should they expect from Wiki?
Absolutely nothing. Okay. Now, Wiki Carmona was part of a generation of young Red Bull players who it seemed like the maximum was going to be solid MLS players, and I think that's really where he was. The Stroud brothers and him were all kind of part of the same few years. Daniel Edelman, guys like that. He was an attacking midfielder who didn't quite have the skill set to be a number 10, who doesn't quite have the touch to be a striker. Here's what he'll give you. He'll give you a lot of hard work. He'll run all over the field. And I do think he has things to add to any team. I think he's pretty good off the bench. He is a passionate player. He just lacks almost every final skill, final touch, final shot, all those things. So what you should expect is him to completely disappear like a blanket covering him over the field. But when he shows up, if he got the ball, if he just touched the ball one more time, or if he just shot the ball without he just doesn't have that final quality in what he was playing. So Could he start for Montreal? Yeah, he could probably be really good on Montreal, but not good enough for most Major League Soccer teams. He just lacks a little bit. Overall, from what I hear, great player, great addition, no locker room issues, just a solid guy around. However, this is not the Major League Soccer that allows for kind of career players. And we're kind of seeing that, right? Like teams are going, okay, we don't need a 28, 30, 31-year-old who's going to be a forever MLS guy. Let's take the chance on some young kids. Let's take the chance on some outside signings and see what we can do. So Carmona, he will have you on the edge of your seat. He will do some things that absolutely impress the heck out of you, and then he'll disappear for the next 3 games. That's kind of what he's done in his time in Major League Soccer. Those exciting times are going to have you really, really wishing for more, but that final step is been lacking.
Yeah, and honestly, I know you mentioned that he might start for Montreal, but he hasn't. He's been a backup. I've personally been trying to take advantage of those minutes he gets to really get an idea of what kind of player he is, what he brings to Montreal. And I think you're absolutely right, Bob, in saying that it's kind of tough to see because you almost see like he's playing a certain way and then it just stops because he never completes it. He started something and never ends. So I thought maybe it's something to do with his development, but he's not young either. We're not talking about 17, 18 years old either. He's already 22, 23 if I'm not mistaken. So what was the overall mood among supporters regarding Michael Bradley in his first season at the helm? And has that perception maybe shifted at all since the opening matches?
So the hardcore fans knew what he did in Next Pro, winning the championship last year, and knew what qualities he had. Now, this isn't your normal everyday young coach. He grew up as a coach's son. He played a very important position on the field for both the U.S. men's national team and for his club team back when he was with Toronto. I think he is the highest level of consummate professional. He is someone who's been groomed to be a coach for a lot of his playing career. You know, when you're a coach's son, you are 16 years old thinking about the end. What am I going to do when this experiment's over? And I think that I haven't talked to him, so I don't know this, but I would assume that that's kind of been in the back of his head most of his career. I mean, you're here for a good time, not for a long time. You know, that's the part about being a professional soccer player. So we were really excited to get him. I think that the timing worked out perfectly. There should have been a long list of teams in Major League Soccer who wanted to get his services. And it was always optimism for the future. Hey, in 3 years, this will be a great signing. It's not 3 years. It's a great signing today. And I think that is the excitement, and that is the surprise. Not that he succeeded. I mean, he didn't succeed. Who knows? We could lose the next 34 games.
Oh yeah,
but
trust me, I know.
There is excitement about him, and I think we've seen some of the payoff way earlier than could have ever been expected. Again, this is very wishful thinking.
Yeah, well, Michael Bradley does have a special relationship with CF Montreal, especially because during his time at Toronto FC, he was kind of a fiery guy, really in your face kind of player, and he got under a lot of fans' skin because of his approach to the game. Some people loved it, some people hated it, but you know what? He had his success, and now we're seeing it as a coach. He might have that same approach, right? So hopefully he doesn't get under fans' skin again. But let's get to the game for Saturday. Tactically speaking, what kind of game should CF Montreal prepare for when they face New York on Saturday?
Red Bull's going to try to come out and punch you in the mouth in the first 45 seconds. You know, that's what it is. It is energy ball. It is not the same press that you might have seen in years past, where just constant running. It's, I haven't really figured out what the trigger is on the press, but it's going to be high upfield. It's going to be running down the wings. It's going to be attacking those fullbacks. Cade Cowell and Ruvalcaba have been chasing all up and down the field, going on runs. Last week against New England, it was a little lacking. The final cross into the third was going over a lot of heads, so it may not be the most skilled attack, but it's going to be paced down the wings. It's going to be solid play, impenetrable play down the middle. And, I think that is a lot of what you're going to see. And the rest of it is just going to be a spine trying to bend, not break, and play solid defense. Look, we shut out New England. That's not a big feat, but for a young team, that is a really big deal. Matthew Dos Santos, 17 years old at fullback. Yeah, Justin Shea, and Dylan Nealis, Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy. So that the 3 defenders under the age of 22. So, it's going to be exciting. There are a lot of question marks, but now we kind of have the blueprint, and it's going to be pressing, countering, hitting the wings, and, just waiting for something special.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like the old New York that we're used to watching. It does sound like a very different approach. New York was always well, they always had that approach of a high press, high press, high press, nonstop high press. But I mean, you're telling me that it's changed a little bit. The scheme that they kind of evolved over time. I mean, I don't know if that came from up top or it's because of the coach that they decided to make that change. But anyways,
I think with the best coach, and I think Michael Bradley is one of these high quality coaches who can do that. Now, I just came from I'm a musician during my free time, and I just came from a music rehearsal, and I was thinking about Duke Ellington. I know you guys have the jazz festival, so I'm going to talk about jazz for like 10 seconds. There are formulas for creating music where like this, the first trumpet, the second trumpet, the third trumpet, here's what we're going to do separately. Duke Ellington didn't do that. He wrote for the player. And that's why his music's so hard to play, to recreate, because he didn't write music for someone who might have these skill set. He knew the player he had, and he wrote for that skill set. Right. So I think that's kind of what Michael Bradley is trying to do with this squad. He's not asking anyone to do too much. He's keeping them inside their skills. Kate Cowell is not expected to score goals. And that's good because I don't think he can dribble around players and find the box. But he's expected to bring that pace and energy down the wing. Julian Hall is not being asked to shoot from outside the box. He's asked to walk the ball into the back of the net, and he's done that 3 times already. So I think that there's been a really nice balance between what you would expect most players of this position to do and what you can expect your actual players to do. And I think really the best coaches can find that quickly.
Nice. And I know you've touched on it a little bit already, but I'm still going to ask the question. So what specific areas of New York's game could cause problems for CF Montreal this weekend?
You have 4 players in the back line that haven't been together for more than a month. They just picked up a new wing back, Bungi from Leipzig. You have a keeper who's playing his first year with the team who doesn't know how to necessarily, I'm not going to say doesn't know, can't organize guys that he hasn't had that opportunity with. So if there's an issue, and it hasn't been an issue yet, but I could see a scenario where young players, young team, a little disjointed, they've never yet played from behind. So all these little things, maybe there's a miscommunication, ball goes in early, not facing that type of adversity yet. That would be where you would find us. I don't think there's something tactically on the field where I can say Montreal is better than us at this.
Right.
But
right. But would you say there's any strengths in particular from this New York team that could challenge Montreal this weekend? Any specific, maybe style of play that they can really they're really strong in?
I would like to get under Thomas Aviles' skin really early. Get him on a card in the first half. It kind of seems like a winning strategy there.
We're not over it. Don't say that. Yeah, no, of course.
So,
yeah,
I think exploiting the wings. I know your fullback situation. Like I saw Dagger Dan playing like left wing last week. Not really where I'd want him to be. And outside of that, we've seen guys like Hidalgo. We don't know what your back line is going to look like. And if you have like fullbacks playing center back like he did last week, or vice versa, I think that's really something that could be exploited. And it's the midfield. I mean, this midfield for Red Bull has been fantastic. Mehmeti, 16 years old, and Michael Bradley put his trust in him. That says a lot to me, because Michael Bradley was one of the best players to play that position in Major League Soccer. And Mehmeti has been nearly flawless in his time. And as a holding midfielder, he's putting balls forward. If there was criticism for Michael Bradley in his time playing, it was, he's a square pass specialist. His time with the men's national team, he'll pass the ball back too much and doesn't look forward. It's all about not losing possession. But Mehmeti's having like 85% pass completion, and he's getting the ball forward at a really young age with a ton of confidence. So I think him, and then linking up with Emil Forsberg, someone who could just dribble around any player on the field. I can't really talk enough good things about Emil Forsberg. I mean, he scored in a World Cup. He scored in, you can go through every competition, Champions League, this and that. And I think if he was in a team like LA, he would be a more elevated superstar than he is in Red Bull. So, yeah.
Well, 100%. Emil Forsberg is definitely a player that I think many people forget about just because, as you mentioned, is the team that he's playing in. But he is 100% a very, very talented player that Montreal should pay so much money to get that kind of player, even if it can even get close to his kind of skill. Now
that's your outside the box guy. He's the one who's going to curl one in when you're sleeping.
Yeah, and then that's exactly what Montreal needs, somebody that can surprise it. But anyways, we're hoping that Ivan Jaime maybe lights it up at some point. Now, I know we talked about the big names, but is there a dark horse or maybe an underrated player who could swing this match, who could make a difference?
So, I mean, we've talked about Julian Hall a little bit. 3 goals, 17 years old, but his job is kind of like hit that energy to be, ahead of the attack, to catch those crosses. If you look at his first 2 games, I think both his goals were within 4 feet of the net, like just getting himself in really good spots there. The wild card that we haven't seen yet is Jorge Ruvalcaba. He hasn't made himself known in a lot of the matches. I talked to one other person from Red Bull Media, and he kind of presented me with kind of an alternative approach that I might not have considered. Emil Forsberg is center midfield, but he swings out left. That's where Ruvalcaba is going to be running up and down the wings. But I think the first pass is going to be to Cade Cowell to carry that ball, hit that with pace and size. And maybe Ruvalcaba is just kind of the backup plan. He's waiting there as an outlet. Maybe not plan A or plan B, but when the opportunity strikes to hit one of those guys, maybe he's not meant to be the everyday goal scorer, but someone who instead can, go by unnoticed and sneak into the picture. So he hasn't had goal contributions yet this season, but I think that he might be someone really to look out for.
Interesting. And what are your predictions for Saturday? Win, loss, tie, draw?
It's so hard because with the team this young, and I know
be nice.
This is iced tea. This isn't Kool-Aid, by the way. I know when I'm brought onto a show, like I'll play the card. Like, yeah, no one wants to hear me. Oh, we're okay. We don't know. No, you want to hear me. But this is still a very young squad. This is still a squad that hasn't quite clicked yet. There's a lot of questions on defense. So this game has a huge disparity. It could be 3-0 Montreal. It could be 6-2 Red Bull. Like, there's a huge amount of possibilities for what could happen. If you're going to ask me for a prediction, I would say 3-0 to the Red Bull. And that's only because I had to trace it with someone else on another podcast last night on when is Montreal going to score their first goal? And it was like, well, I got to say not this weekend, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to be a challenge. 3-0 is fair. I like to ask this to all of our guests that come on Opp Watch. Because CF Montreal does have some really, really good traveling fans. So if somebody's visiting New York, the New York area, where's your go-to spot to eat? And what's the must-try dish there?
So you're in Harrison, New Jersey. There's 2 places you can go. One is called Taqueria. It is a taco Korean fusion where like you get the tacos, but it's like bulgogi beef and stuff like that inside. Ooh. Absolutely fantastic. Try everything on the menu. Absolutely fantastic. It's not fast food, but it's like a quicker service kind of place. And that's right on the main street, right outside Red Bull.
I like that. Not fast food, but quicker service. I like that.
And if you want to sit down and have a full experience in Newark, just a couple blocks from the bridge where the walkover happens, there's a place called Boy na Brasa. It is a Portuguese barbecue place. You see the meats going, get the meat sample. They'll cut it right in front of you, right on your plate. Absolutely fantastic there.
Oh, man, I wrote those places down. I'm so excited. Listen, Bob, we really appreciate you taking some time to join us at the Ball is Round for this edition of Opp Watch. But before we let you go, where can our listeners follow you to stay up to date on all things New York Red Bulls and MLS?
All social media at Bob V Soccer. You can find me on Blue Sky, Twitter, X, Instagram, any of those. You can see me posting content each and every week. My podcast, The Designated Pundits, does a Monday recap video with guests from around the league each and every Monday. So not only are we recapping the week, but kind of hyper focusing on one different team, maybe someone who did something special, a really intriguing matchup that happened that week. And then on Thursday, we are known for our prediction videos. That's where we give you the best bets from each and every game. Not each and every game. We have 4 analysts who work as handicappers, and we give our best 5 to 6 picks. So we talk about 10 out of the 15 matches, give a little preview, talk about not only what the picks are, but what gives us the inside edge on those plays.
All right. Well, thank you, Bob. And may the best team win this weekend.